So yesterday you were reflecting on your title screen how somebody pointed out that it looked, was it creepy? So somebody just pointed out that my title screen looks like a big frowny face. And I just want to be absolutely clear that I'm excited to be here. I'm excited about deep learning. I'm here to talk about its application to the environment. This is not a frowny face. This is an image taken from EarthCast. They have a sensor on the International Space Station. And this is the Nile. So that dark, frowny-looking thing is actually the Nile winding around. It's lush green. You can go see the full color version of that on their website. So here's what I'm going to do. I work on forests at WRI every day. It's really familiar to me. I recognize that it's probably not as familiar to many people in this room. I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking about what it is, why it's important, how it plays a role. And then I'm going to talk about Global Forest Watch. So that's what we launched at World Resources Watch last year to monitor deforestation from satellite imagery and machine learning. Then I'll talk about our partnership with Orbital Insight and conclude with a couple of different areas where we might be able to apply deep learning for the environment. So let's get started. Let's look at some numbers. 1 billion people in the world depend on forests for basic needs. This is like shelter, food, and water. Forests store 1 trillion tons of carbon. And finally, in just the last 10 years, we've cut down 230 million hectares. Now, 2,000 years ago, globally, we had about 8 billion hectares of forests. In the last 2,000 years, we've cut down half of that. But in the last 100 years, we've cut down half of that. So you can kind of get a sense of the rate of deforestation. So this is it, guys. This is home. This is our planet. This is Earth. If we mess this up, it's kind of game over. This is the first image of Earth that humans took from space. It's from the Apollo mission. Now, here's that same view of Earth from 4 billion miles away. This was taken by the Voyager 1 as it was leaving the solar system. And it was Carl Sagan's idea to take this picture. I really like it. It's probably familiar to many of you. It's called the pale blue dot. You can see this is Earth right here. And for me, it just drives home the point that, you know, there's not a lot of places nearby where humans can go and, like, survive. So we got to take care of Earth. So this is just a quick close-up. This is Voyager 1. I love this. It was launched the year I was born in 1977. It's currently the furthest human-made thing from Earth. It's 10 billion miles away. It's traveling 40,000 kilometers per hour. And the more I learn about deep learning, the more I wish we had some onboard deep learning architecture on this thing. Imagine what it could be learning from looking and listening in interstellar space where it is right now. So I'm not the only one excited. So FYI, if you have kids, always get a picture of them into your slides. They absolutely love it. This is my 6-year-old son, Noah, and my 1-year-old, Amelie. And they're in a forest. You'll notice that he's drawing a picture in his notebook. You might think he's drawing a picture of trees, but actually he thinks a lot about space. That may be because I force him to watch Cosmos episodes with me every weekend. But ignoring that, let's talk through this. So this is obviously Earth. This is the moon. It's a new moon. That's why it's black. This is an asteroid heading towards Earth. And I pointed out to Noah, I'm like, Noah, you know, the sun is a little bit too close for scale. And he's like, Dad, that's not Earth, that's Venus. So here's Venus. This is our nearest planetary neighbor, and it's really hot. You can melt lead on the surface. And it has this very dense atmosphere of sulfur gas. What that means is only a little bit of sunlight can trickle through and reach the surface. So if that's true, why is it so hot? Do we have any Venus experts in the room? Does anybody want to take a guess? If only a little bit of energy from the sun can reach the surface, why is it so hot? Yes? Yeah, carbon dioxide. There's a ton of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere on Venus. And so what happens is a little bit of the energy from the sun that gets in cannot get out again. Let's contrast that to Earth. So Earth and Venus started out with about the same amount of carbon. The difference was Venus lost its oceans billions of years ago. Earth did not. So Earth, over millions of years, has absorbed the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. How did it do it? Trillions of algae that converted the carbon dioxide gas into rock, into coral reef. This is the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. This picture blows me away. I didn't know this existed. Back in the 80s, the Soviet Union landed a spacecraft on Venus and took this picture. They refrigerated it, so it had enough time to take this picture, transmit it back to Earth, and then it melted. And I love it, because this is like what happens when a planet that presumably had oceans and was lush goes crazy with global warming. Okay, so fortunately, we have forests. Forests are an annual natural process that regulates carbon. So remember, the oceans are over millions of years, but forests do it on an annual cycle. What do? In the springtime, they breathe in a bunch of carbon dioxide. That's the input to photosynthesis. the output is oxygen and gas. And then in the fall, of course, it drops its leaves, and a little bit of that carbon comes out. So this is an annual process that works for us out of the box. Here's Earth, out of the box, forests regulate carbon for us. How do we know? Well, this guy, Kelling, back in the 50s, this device he invented to accurately measure carbon in the atmosphere. And he's the one that discovered this kind of annual cycle of carbon levels going down in the atmosphere and then going up in the fall. But we also learned something else. So if you drill into the ice core in Greenland and Antarctica, you get this unbroken record of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the past 800,000 years. So the takeaway here is, so this is parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So you can just see there's this trend over hundreds of thousands of years. It never goes above 300. This is the Industrial Revolution here. And ever since then, when we started burning, like coal and gas for energy, it's been going up and up and up and up and up, and we're currently above the 380. So this is a visualization from a NASA Aqua satellite of the same thing. This starts in 2002, and we have 365 parts per million. We'll skip ahead to 2008. Now we're up into the 380s, skip again to 2014 last year. We're into the 390s. And just like last month, for the first time in human history, we are above 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Okay, so is it really from burning coal and gas? Is that where all the carbon is coming from? After all, volcanoes are still erupting, and in fact, they put 500 million tons of carbon dioxide gas into the atmosphere annually. But that's not even 2% of the 30 billion tons of carbon that our civilization pumps into the atmosphere every single year. Think about that number by burning gas and oil and by burning these fossil fuels, 30 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So what happens when you have a lot of carbon in the atmosphere? The sunlight that comes in gets blocked, the planet starts heating up. So the take home here is we have temperature data for the past 100 years or so. Notice the upward trend. We can look at a visualization of that. Blue is cooler areas, yellow is warmer. So this is like in 1884. We'll go 100 years later, 1984. And then just last year, notice that it's getting kind of warm up here. That's where the polar caps are. So a polar cap is white. It does a really good job at reflecting sunlight. So as it warms up and melts, there's less surface to reflect sunlight, which means more sunlight hits our oceans. And oceans are really good at absorbing and capturing energy. So it's like this positive feedback loop. Why is a warming planet a problem? Because it causes climate change. All that means is that dry areas get a little drier, wet areas get a little wetter, hot areas get a little hotter. The climate gets more extreme. And if we look at what things look like in the next 15 years, there's going to be 8 billion people worldwide, and the demand for food, water, and energy is going to go up 35%, 40%, and 50%, respectively. Well, so that's a lot of demand on resources that become hard to get when the climate starts getting really extreme. Now, this sounds kind of dire, but the way I see it is our future as a species is Star Trek or we go extinct. Now, there are a number of reasons why we might go extinct. It might be we kill ourselves because of carbon in the next 100 years. Maybe it's an asteroid hits us, or maybe it's not until like 1 billion years when most scientists agree the sun will be so hot that it's going to like evaporate our oceans. So this was kind of the reason that the World Resources Watch last year launched Global Forest Watch. Again, this uses low-resolution satellite imagery, applies machine learning on it, to tell us where and when forests are being cut down. There's 2 products, data products that tell us this. I won't go into detail, but UMD on the left here, this is an annual data product. It measures forest cover loss, and the resolution is 30 meters. Forma is a biweekly, so every 2 weeks, we get a measure of an alert. So it's saying we are 50% sure that forests are disappearing at a resolution of 250 meters. Now, it says 500 meters there, but it's now 250 meters. So this is not going to show up. I realize this is not going to show up. You can go to globalforestwatch.org and do this animation. We're going to look at UMD over time. And just take a look at, it's really going to light up here in Africa and Indonesia and Canada. So I'm going to go through this one click at a time. So what is this? This is 2007, 2008, 2009. We'll keep on going. So you can see globally. Now, this is Forma. This is only in the pantropical region, so you'll see it in Brazil and Africa and Indonesia. And again, this is just going forward from 2006. So it's pretty amazing. And on Global Forest Watch, you can look at some data by a country. So if you're interested in a particular country, this is Indonesia, which was particularly hard hit. Okay, so that's the context for forests, what they are, why they're important, why maybe our lives kind of depend on them in the near future. And so Global Forest Watch, a lot of things have gone right. It has gotten real-time actionable information into the hands of decision makers in government, in business, et cetera. What can we do better? Well, these machine learning algorithms have taken years to develop. There's a lot of feature engineering on a region-by-region basis, and it takes domain experts in remote sensing. So this is where I think deep learning can help solve this problem. We partnered with Orbital Insight to experiment, to kind of figure out, does this make sense? Will it work? So again, the idea is, can we apply deep learning to high-resolution satellite imagery to get beyond monitoring and actually predict this stuff? This is just a high-level view of their architecture. It's a general computer vision architecture. It's not deep learning specific, but it's in there, decision trees, et cetera. For a new domain like forests, you need these things in red. We need some high-resolution images. We need areas to look. We need some labeled training data. And then we need to have some additional statistical analysis after the deep learning just to know what to correlate it to. So here's the plan for training data. Forma data for the past 10 years gives us 12 million alerts. We're going to go back into the archive of Digital Globe and Landsat to find examples of what deforestation looks like from space. And this is the type of thing that our hypothesis is, if we feed that into a CNN, it's going to be able to detect these logging roads. It's a pretty good indicator of deforestation. What I'd like to do is take that training data and make it available to the community in this room and at large, anyone interested in applying their techniques to it. I don't know if this is the right home for something like that. If anybody has more information, I'd love to talk to you. It's an exciting time, I think, for the intersection of deep learning and the environment. So Planet Labs, they have commodity satellites that in 5 years, every day will have high-resolution global satellite imagery. That's a lot of rocket fuel. It's exciting. We have labs like Descartes Labs out of the Los Altos, and they're using this data and applying deep learning to understand a changing planet, very similar to what we're doing with Orbital Insight. Then you have EarthCast. They're kind of doing the same. They're doing both. They're providing data and a platform to analyze it. Here's a great opportunity to have some deep learning for the environment, and Google and Skybox have the same setup. A couple of future applications. CartoDB is an online platform for creating web maps really easily, and they just integrated with Digital Globe, so users now have easy access to high-resolution satellite imagery. It'd be great to integrate tools that we've seen over the past couple of days, deep learning as a service, to democratize access, to make it really easy for users to quickly iterate and experiment with this stuff. We're working with Biocarbon Engineering. We're trying to put a partnership together. They use drones to plant trees 1 billion at a time. That's pretty amazing. It's an opportunity for deep learning, not only on the remote sense information that they gain, but also hardware, deep learning on board. This is an example from the panel yesterday. Same thing, a cell phone in a tree listening for a chainsaw in the forest. Maybe we can do better with deep learning. And finally, this is Watt Time, connecting clean energy to the Internet of Things. You have a device at home. It tells you where your energy source is coming from. So for example, if you're going to wash your clothes, it might say, if you wash your clothes now, you're burning coal. If you wait for 5 minutes, you're using wind power. I don't know much about these guys, but what I do know is that they are building an AI that kind of connects to a bunch of different sources of information to ask really tricky questions. So I'd love to take the outputs of deep learning for the environment and connect it to Viv, so you could say, okay, Viv, can you tell me where in my country deforestation is predicted to happen in the next few days so we can allocate resources there? Finally, we see deep learning do a lot of things like understanding what's in an image. Can we use deep learning to go the other way and create images so that we understand the data in a way that we can take action? So it's kind of flipping that around. And the CMU Create Lab is doing some interesting things. I don't know if they're using deep learning, but check them out for cutting-edge visualization stuff. This all comes together for me as Nest for the planet. Nest gives you feedback so you can regulate the energy you use in the home. It'd be nice to do that on a global scale. Finally, I'm pretty optimistic about the future. I don't think we're going to go extinct from carbon. We have the technology. We have the brain power to do it. It's just we just have to start focusing on it a little bit. This is exploring the tallest point in the solar system on Mars. And finally, does anyone know who this guy is? Totally. It's like I read his book 15 years ago, The Computer and the Brain. It's kind of what motivated me to study computer science. I mean, right, deep learning is not exactly the brain. There's a lot about the brain that we don't know, as Andrew pointed out yesterday. But still, this guy is kind of my inspiration, and I still have that book. So thank you very much, and I'll take questions.